They would do everything they could to keep me alive, but that they needed to say their goodbyes. Hey, we're the Pool family.
I'm Justin,
I'm Rachel.
and today we're going to be doing a story.
About the day I almost died. Um, Justin was in the Army, and at his first duty station, we were in Texas. As soon as we got there, he made the decision to deploy immediately. He was trying to fast track his career, and I was supportive 100%. I was 100% behind him, and I was so proud of him.
And Rachel at the time was pregnant.
I was pregnant with Isabella. It was a high-risk pregnancy, so it wasn't an easy deployment. We were just getting our relationship started, our marriage, and so it was very difficult, but it was a life that he signed up for, and I loved him, and I wanted to support him. So while he was deployed, we had 2 vehicles, and so one of our friends who Justin went to AIT with, and he got stationed where we were. He didn't have a vehicle, and so we were letting him borrow mine. So Corey Moss borrowed my vehicle, and he wrecked it. Over $3,000 worth of damages, and so he had to pay me back, and the Army was making him pay me back. So fast track through the deployment, we're dealing with trying to get the money from him to get my vehicle fixed, and on October 30th, just a month before Justin was scheduled to come home, I actually got a phone call while I was at work. And it was my next door neighbor, and she was telling me that there was some guy who was casing my house, and he kept looking in the windows and walking around trying to get in the back. And she said that when she finally called me back, she's like, well, he's not here, so everything looks fine. So after work that day, I got a call from Justin, like I do most mornings for him, evenings for me. And before he went to work that day, he called me. And so we were on FaceTime talking. I had just purchased a puppy that morning before work. And so I was so excited to go home to my little teacup chihuahua. I couldn't wait to get to the house and show her off again. It was so ecstatic. I was just excited and distracted. I all but run into the house as fast as I could, being 9 months pregnant. I got halfway through the kitchen and just got that feeling that there was something out of place. I didn't stop and check on my big dogs like I usually do. I just went running straight through, and something told me to turn around. Now this whole time I'm on FaceTime with Justin. So I turn around and I see someone in my house. But I wasn't afraid. There was no fear attached to it because I knew who it was. It was Corey. So I started to say, hey, Moss, because he was a friend and I just didn't know why he was in the house. It didn't register at first that he was wearing something covering his entire face.
It's called a gator neck.
And his dark sunglasses, even though it was, going towards evening time. none of that registered because I knew who he was. It just, before I can acknowledge who he is out loud, he rushes towards me and starts stabbing me. The first strike hit above my left eye. The next one hit in the corner of my right eye. The third hit on my chest above the right side of my chest. And with that third hit, I knew that if I didn't turn and get away, that the next strike was going to be Isabella. So I did everything I could, and I turned and started to run out of the house. And the next hit was on my neck. And then, as I was trying to get away, he broke my arm and snapped my humerus. The pain from all of that jarred me to where I fell onto my knees, and then onto my knees. And at that point, he started stabbing me in the head. I have 20 plus stab wounds in my scalp. And when I was still fighting and still struggling to get away, the next hit was on the back of my neck. And that hit paralyzed me to where I couldn't move any part of my body. And there was a voice in my head that said, "Stop breathing. Don't breathe, just be still." And so I held my breath. And I just waited until I heard his footsteps. And then I heard the door close. As soon as I heard the door close, I knew that I couldn't just stay there anymore. Because I knew if I didn't get help, then I was not going to make it. And therefore, Isabella was not going to make it. But I couldn't move. I kept trying to move, and my arms and my legs, I just couldn't get anything to function right. So I did everything I could, and I got to where I could turn my body around, and I used the cabinets to push off, and I couldn't move the right side of my body at all. And so I started using my broken arm and my face to crawl across the floor. Once I got across to where my phone was, I had to use my chin and my nose to unlock and call 911 to call for help. When I was finally able to get a hold of the dispatch from 911, the first thing that I said to them was, "Corey Moss just tried to kill me. Corey Moss just tried to kill my baby." And so when they walked in, the police came in knowing that I knew who my attacker was. So while I'm laid on the floor talking to 911, my phone keeps ringing because we had been on the phone, Justin and I, and at the first stab, the phone went flying out of my hand, and we lost service. We lost connection. We lost... I don't know how to say it right now. Sorry. And so I had to keep ignoring his phone calls because the police couldn't get into the house. The doors were locked. And the next thing I hear was the slamming on the door. And I realized that they were using the battering ram to try and break the door into the house because they couldn't get in. And I'm laying on the floor, I'm telling the dispatch that the police are here, but they can't get in. And I kept trying to say, please tell them to come around to the back door. The back door is wide open. Please tell them to come to the back. And the next thing I know, all of these people are running into the back door. And I heard one voice say, "Oh my God, is she even alive?" While I was there and they were trying to stop the bleeding, my phone rang again, and it was Justin. And the policeman, the detective, I believe he was, answered the phone and started talking to Justin.
And I asked, "Who is this? And where is my wife?" And he said, "This is El Paso Sheriff Department. Do you know Corey Moss?" And I said I knew it. And he said he just tried to kill your wife. And I got off the phone and I called some friends that I went to AIT with that were on base and let them know that Corey had just finished trying to murder my wife and that they needed to get to the base before Corey tried to leave and go home to try to catch a plane, because our base was fairly close to the airport. And as well as I hopped on Facebook and put a post up of his photo and described in detail what was going on with the situation, so I could make his world a little bit smaller and enlist as much help as possible trying to catch him.
I get into the ambulance finally, and the guys, they were working on me. They were trying to keep me stable. I kept I've always had a very slow heart rate, and so my heart rate kept dropping. I think that they said a couple times that it dropped down to 30 beats per minute. And so they seriously didn't think I was going to make it to the hospital. They actually had the trainee who was with them drive the ambulance, because they figured that it wasn't going to matter how long it took for them to get to the hospital. They kept saying over and over, "Don't worry about the speed, just get there." So we got to the hospital, and one of the worst feelings in the world is lying on one of those cots, being held down, but you can't move anything. And so you're just laying there, staring up at the lights as each one just filters past. I got into the ICU, and they kept me very sedated. I was very, I don't remember most of the next 2 days. I remember bits and pieces. I remember the acting first sergeant being in the room with me and telling me that she was going to make sure that Justin got home. And my mom got there. I don't remember her being there at all. But she got there. And they kept telling me, okay, Miss Poole, we have to take the baby now. And I said, no, you can't. Her dad's not home yet. You can't. She can't be in this world without one of her parents. So, November 1st came. November 1st came, and 3 p.m. rolls around, and the doctor walked into the ICU room and said, Mrs. Poole, I cannot wait any longer for your husband to get here. It is time for us to take you in and make sure that Isabella makes it. And I remember hearing him tell the first sergeant and my mom that they would do everything they could to keep me alive, but that they needed to say their goodbyes. And I believe that that's right when the first sergeant went to the airport to pick you up. So once they got the OR prepped and everything, and it was time for them to take me into the OR, I remember fussing and stalling and doing whatever I could to try and get them to wait. Until finally the OR nurses started rolling me down the hall. And I laid there with tears just rolling down my face, completely distraught because I knew that I was going to be leaving and Isabella wouldn't have anyone when she got here. And the next thing I know, all I heard were footsteps running down the hall. And I saw Justin's face. And he told me, don't worry, I'm here. Everything's going to be okay now. And I either completely don't remember anything from that point, or I was able to just relax and go to sleep because I don't remember going into the OR room. I don't remember a single moment after that. Until I woke up back in the recovery room with Justin there holding my hand.
That's just a little bit of the day she almost died.
I can tell you that this experience has changed me. Not just the physical disabilities that I have now, but the way that I view life, the way I view my children, the way I view my husband. You realize that while people are evil and things are bad, that the good outweighs the bad. That the happiness that you can find in the day-to-day moments are what mean more than anything else. Finding joy in learning to walk with your daughter will forever surpass any of the hardships that I dealt with. Thank you for listening to just a little bit of our story. While there is much more that we have to share, we wanted to start with this because it's a really big part of what defined who we are as people today. Please like our video, subscribe to our channel, and
hit the notification bell.
Ding.
For more videos.
Keep joining us as we share our life with you.
Bye.